Hey, I'm Taylor Dorsett, and this is the Professional Technical Interviewee. Technical interviews are hard, and every company does them differently. On this show, I interview engineering leaders to see what they look for in technical candidates, and then they perform a real technical interview with me. My guest today is Dan Kaplan. He's the CTO of 5to9. We talk about what he's looking for when he's hiring for software engineers at his growing startup. I hope you enjoy.
Well, we're back. So Dan and I worked through trying to get this running on one of two of my MacBooks earlier today, and it did not work for me. So we're going to be working from Dan's computer and kind of talking through basically this is a problem you would typically work through, or the type of problem that you would typically work through, right? At 5to9.
Yeah, perfect. So you can kind of see my screen here. We have as a basic kind of to-do app. It's a little bit more complex in the code, to be honest. What we have here is kind of a Ruby on Rails backend and a React front end. If I share my code base, you're going to see here app looks kind of normal, but then you have JavaScript. This is where kind of all of the kind of the front end lives in here. So this is kind of a React on Rails type of application here. The other thing that I've kind of set up here, which you can kind of see in the scenes here, is we have, if we look under apps models as well, you'll see we have tag, which you can, or excuse me, you see we have to do, which you can kind of see here are the to dos here. Here are the to dos created here. And the other thing I've kind of added into this application is tags. So we go to the tag model, you can kind of see here with to do and tags, we have kind of a join model here, which is this to do tag model. And then we have tags, right? So, the kind of the problem we're going to be working on here is we've created tags. We have our architecture for tags. What we're going to be attempt to accomplish here, if we look on the screen, is we're going to attempt to send these tags to the front end from the back end, and then also ideally kind of display the tags on this page. So we see like walk the dog here. You can kind of see walk the dog has, and we got walk the dog here. Walk the dog has a tag called chore. So ideally we'd kind of see chore next to walk the dog, maybe a little bit of border, maybe a little bit of color, whatever, we'll see where we get to. And, for all these, we'll be able to kind of see the tags next to that. So kind of the first thing we're going to do, if we work here, this is kind of our call here, this all to do's, kind of controller action here. You can kind of see here, if we open up our walk the dog, you kind of see here, we don't have the tags coming to the front end. So that's the first thing we're going to try and solve. And then if we kind of get through that, we'll kind of work on the front end piece of that, of displaying it a little bit.
Cool. So in your to-dos controller, the all to-dos method here, we're running the JSON, anything with completed, anything with pending. So we should be querying tags there as well. We need to write a query.
So ideally, yeah. When we kind of see this all to do's command, we would see kind of tags in here.
Mm-hmm. Great. So can we do it the same way, or basically it would be like line down from line 7, and then something like tags equal to do where, well, I guess it would be like tags equals true. I'd have to look up that relationship. So tag has many to-do tags. And it has many to-dos through to-do tags. Okay. I don't think it actually does make sense to, we would need to find the tags before that controller, right? We shouldn't be actually be doing that in that controller.
Yeah, I would say there is a way to do it where, we wouldn't have to change anything here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they
if you
could
want to go down that approach, one thing I would just kind of keep in mind here, right? We're rendering JSON here, right? So if we know a little bit about how Rails renders JSON, there's a way to potentially, do this outside of the controller.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I know that about Rails. Is there a different spot that it specifically feeds that information or would update that?
I'll be honest, this is a little advanced, but we'll see where you can go with this. But when we render JSON, right, what is Rails doing here?
It's just building an object and then passing in these pieces of information, right?
Right, but it's
and then passing it to the front end.
JSON, right? So when we render, right, this is an active record call here, right? These are two active record calls. Active record is not JSON here, right? So there's something happening here that kind of converts this completed and pending to JSON, right?
Yeah. It's just turning that active record into converting it into just an object, right?
Yeah. I mean, object, yeah, for sure. I mean, pretty much almost everything in Ruby Rails is an object, but yeah, definitely an object here. What would be like, maybe what would be, we're allowed to use Google here, we're allowed to use whatever resource we want. Thinking about the clue I just gave you, what would be something we could Google here?
I would Google render JSON and basically either look at docs, basically what does it actually do?
Render
right?
JSON implicitly Rails. Let's see what that gives us. Which one here? The first one or the second one? Here, this is a Ruby on Rails guide, so you kind of start here. See what this comes into. You see using render maybe. See, this has it. This is kind of rendering just an action view here, right? So that's not really what we're doing here. Rendering an action template, that's not really what we're doing here. Inline, we're not really doing here. HTML, JSON, interesting.
Okay.
So what does this tell us?
JSON is a JavaScript data format. Yeah, you know that. Ruby has built-in support for some converting objects to JSON and rendering that JSON back to the browser. Okay, so it's converting those active record results into objects, into JSON, and then rendering that JSON.
Right, so it has built-in support for converting objects to JSON and rendering that JSON, right? So if we can kind of, if we could kind of figure out what it's using to kind of convert those objects, our goal here, maybe we'd be able to like overwrite that, right? And like have it, right? Because it's doing something, right? It's like it's rendering JSON, it's choosing, if we go back to our to-do app, it's like choosing these fields to render, right? Yeah. It's not like an accident, right? So if we can figure out what this is built-in support is for, then we'll be able to kind of, maybe overwrite that and kind of, solve it that way.
Yeah. So that I don't know what that built-in support. I guess we could just Google that. Rails built-in support for converting objects.
Maybe we'll just Google this, right?
Serialization. Object notation. Yeah.
Want to see where this is going. So you familiar with serializers at all?
No, not really.
Okay, so we could read about this and learn a little bit about serializers. Right, so if you see an application that is using kind of a Rails backend as an API, they're probably using some sort of serialization library. And essentially when we say serialization, all we're doing is kind of, instead of using kind of Rails' built-in support, you can kind of use these libraries to kind of do that for you. The advantages of using the libraries is like, in this case, we're kind of, for example, in this case, right, we're rendering like created at and updated at, we're not really using those, right? So it's kind of pieces of data we don't need to include. So what's nice about these serializers they tend to be a little bit faster than the Rails built-in support, right? Because they're just kind of, that's kind of the use case they're solving for, is partially speed. And they also allow you to make it a little bit easier to customize your kind of JSON response here.
Right. Because we could probably, if we wanted to, we could pass in, if you were in that actions controller again, or that yeah, we could probably do completed equals completed dot, and then individually like pass in each of the things on that object, and just exclude the ones we don't want to pass in.
Say something like, each do completed here, right? What would this look like if we were to do that way?
Basically just have not equals for the ones we don't want, right? Or basically not pass in.
Right, but I think what you're kind of saying here, right? Like, we don't have the tags here. Is there a way to kind of add the tags, just by kind of, maybe looping through it?
Yeah.
If we wanted to like append the tags onto this, how could we do that?
Yeah, that's what's the relationship now? It's like, I'm trying to think of how we can call. How do we see the tags that are attached to it? We'd have to do a query tag.
So if we wanted to do that, we could kind of look in the Rails console, right? Kind of bring up our data model here. Let's give this a second to load here. But yeah, I really like this idea. Let's kind of get into our data, see the operation that we would need here, right? So if we look at to do that first, right? Get that walk the dog. If we wanted to get the tags, what would we do here? Looking in our to-do model.
To do has many, to do tags, has many tags. Can we just do to do dot tags?
Yeah, that should work, right? So we see them right there, right?
Right. Okay.
Right. So, you mentioned earlier, right? These are kind of just returning objects, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's like an object we could use to, instead of returning these, we could kind of return our own object that has tags in it.
Each do. I'm trying to. I think syntax is tripping me up, but if we just did like completed dot tags, right? Would that?
Well, that would just return the tags, right? So how do we kind of?
Or completed equals completed dot tags, something like that, where we're,
Right. So what is completed here? I think you're going down the right path here, but let's just break it down, and I think we'll figure it out. What is completed?
Completed is an active record result, right?
Yeah. So completed, right? It's outside. Let's say it wasn't an active record. What would it be?
Be an object.
Not really, right? Right, we can do each on it, right? So what does that mean completed is?
Oh, this is an array?
An array of what?
An array of objects?
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
If we wanted to just create our own objects here, what would we use to do that?
Your own object.
How do we create an object just in Ruby?
Just something equals brackets, right? Or variable name equals brackets?
By brackets, you mean this?
Yeah.
So do you know what this is called? Object is close. There's a slightly better word for it in Ruby.
No. Maybe I'm forgetting my Ruby syntax.
Yeah, no worries. So this is called a hash, right?
Hash. Yeah. Okay.
Right. So maybe if we did something, we have completed as just maybe if we were trying to build our own array of objects here, maybe that would work here, right? So we could do something. Here's our completed array, right? So how would we build, we have our completed hash. How would we kind of build this up, and then kind of, how would we kind of create our array of objects kind of individually, as opposed to kind of letting Rails do it for us?
Yeah. So within that hash, or we could do completed hash dot right? The various different things we want, right? So dot
Yeah, so if we look here, like what are the, well, we know we want tags here, so maybe we'll do
Yeah.
something. So how do we fill this?
just completed dot tags.
Yeah, I think that should work. All right, and then what else do we want of these things here?
Completed, so completed dot completed, and then probably ID and title.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So completed dot completed equals completed dot completed. That might mess up, so I'm gonna just call this C now. You can see here, right? And then I think you mentioned title.
Yeah.
And ID.
Yes. And I don't care about updated at or created at.
Now we have our completed hash, right? So how do we put that into our array?
It's not push, it's the shovel in Ruby, right? So completed hash.
Completed hash, right? So now, essentially we'd want to do the same thing for pending, right? But let's see what that gives us. All right, looks like we might have gotten an error here. Undefined method tags for hash, right? So instead of using dot here, right? So undefined method tags, let's actually Google this and see what comes up. This is not a good one. Looks like tags might be maybe this won't work.
Oh, like a reserved word.
There's like what's like maybe a different way to define our, essentially here, right? We're kind of defining our key of the hash, right? This is the value. What's a better way to define a key?
We could put it in. I guess I use brackets interchangeably in a confusing way. We could put it within brackets, right? Parentheses.
Parentheses like this.
Sorry, brackets.
Like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's try this and see how this works. See here. Oh, we don't have any errors. That looks good. We look at our all to dos completed. Look at that. There they are right there.
Nice. And then if we wanted to specify certain things within the tags, we could do the same thing again, right? If we only wanted pieces of those tags.
Yeah, then we could go we could have opened this up and kind of do the same thing. I don't think optimization for this interview. I really like that you brought that up, right? But do we need to do that in the interview? Probably not.
Right.
Let's just copy this real quickly for pending. Pending hash and pending. And
you got all the shortcuts. I love it. You are fast. That's some great code speed.
See, I'm fast when I know exactly what I want to do. When I do the reverse. Awesome. So now if we look in pending, let's refresh that one more time. Did I not do that right? That should work. There we go, pending, and then we can see everything in here as well.
Great.
Awesome. So I think that's awesome. We did the backend piece of this, right? So the next piece here, we have our all to-dos call here, right? We're setting the to-dos here. This is use state for React. You mentioned you weren't, but yeah, just want to make sure you have this right. We have our to-dos. Our to-dos are, look, we have our pending and completed here. So maybe we'll look at completed. Open up completed. We have completed here. Completed is just a map. Again, we're passing the entire to-do. Completed items. We have the to-do here. So if we wanted to put the tags, if we have them next to it, how would we kind of do that?
Very similar.
Do a little inspect here. You can see here, this is kind of where we are in this form check. This guy.
We should be able to basically right next to title, right? Could we do the same thing where basically we're past, or I don't even know if we can do it within this same expression.
Yeah, I think next to it would be better here. So what are we?
Just completed to-dos dot tags. Well, that might return it's probably going to return the whole.
Yeah, so we go back to our network tab. So yeah, so that would return the whole thing, right? So if we wanted to get inside this and just return the name of the tags, how would we do that?
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly how it's going to render, if it's going to do all of the tags, but if we just did tags dot name, right? We might need to do tags bracket 0 dot name.
Bracket 0. So what you're trying, so here, right? So, but we don't know how many tags or if it has tags.
Right,
so
right.
What's a better way to kind of get into these tags, right? We can kind of look at, what we did for completed here, right? We had, kind of the same structure here. You can kind of see how this handled that.
Could we do a map? Is that how it's being done here?
Yeah, so we did map. We have our tag index here, right? Then, so you're saying we just kind of do tag.name here? Something like that. See what that does.
Spit something out.
It's just doing the compiling. This React and Rails compiling's a bit slow.
I've been using Next recently, and it says fast reloads all the time in the bottom, and I'm like, this isn't fast.
Yeah, so our app has, just to be clear, our app has Rails as its own repo and React as its own repo, so it does move a little bit faster than that.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Okay.
So we can see that kind of worked here. We got chores and work.
We need some styling to basically display them in a nice way. They at least show up, right?
So, like that. All right. The function on this app's a little bit off. All right, cool. There we go. Chore and work here.
Right. So, where do we want them to be? Do we want them somewhere just styled nicely in a?
Yes, I think how can we, make this a little bit nicer? I don't think we have to get crazy here for the purpose of this, but what's the way we could do that, make it a little bit nicer?
I mean, in front of that, JSX the right term? Basically, our expression. I think we could just write tag, right? Just so we clarify, it's like tag : or something. Just so it's clear that these are tags now.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would do it. Really.
And then we at least want to put a comma or a space or something. Okay, that puts it in there.
Okay.
It doesn't look nice, but it puts it in there at least.
What's something we could do like in here that can make this a little bit, that would allow us to style it a little bit easier?
Instead of just returning the tag, we could return like a p tag or something, right?
Yeah, p tag. Yeah.
P tag or a span, whatever.
Yeah, I like span a little bit more.
And then, I mean, our call, what we want to put on there, but we could do some inline styling that just.
Yeah. What
I don't know.
do you think would work here? We're gonna have to do
Just Well, we just want spacing between it.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you? I guess just margin right or something.
Margin right. I think that would work. Maybe 5. Maybe we can give
Yeah.
it a quarter. I think this will work. We'll see if that's good.
Yeah. Margin right dash. What is it?
So for the inline styling and React, it's this way. But yeah, margin
Nice.
right dash would be if you were doing it in the. If you don't think this has CSS, maybe it's in assets here. Yeah, we could have done it in here as well.
Right. Yeah.
The inline styling, I think, will be a little bit faster.
Every company I've worked for, they're like, "Oh, we hate that we have inline styling in our app, and we try to get away from it." And then I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And we don't do any more inline styling. The next place I go, they say the same thing. It's always fun to see.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool there.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, I mean, we could put a solid line or something to the left of tag, just different things to make it look nice. Or we could probably find a way to comma separate them or bold them.
I like the solid line a little bit better here. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think you did great work here. Definitely a team paired effort, but this is exactly what we're looking for, right? I mean, we could do the same thing on pending, of course, but I think we pretty much got it here.
Yeah.
So
we could do just for pending, if there wasn't one, that's the first error that I see, right? We could, I think, what is it? You can do the and operators to display or not display something. Basically, if there were no tags, we wouldn't display that line at all. I don't know how that would work with.
So I think you would want something like I think this would work.
Yeah. Put that in there now.
Was it greater than 0? And then we could this is going to be kind of weird. Or actually, we could leave what we had like this, and then just do it here. I think this will work.
There you go. I think you got a comma instead of a period by length tags.
Good call. Great call. Check that one. Loads. Hopefully, we don't have to reload it again. Let's see. Performance on this is super strong. Yeah, awesome.
Nice.
So now I want to see it there.
Well, that is the.
It's coming up for this one, but. Trying to think. Maybe do something like that. Oh, that's right.
But we just bumped into the absolute max amount of React knowledge I have. That's knowing that and operator exists is the edge. How to actually make it work correctly.
I think there is a way to make this work. We were both struggling it live under the pressure. We could do the one question I had for you actually was, right? Mm-hmm. So we were going down like a different solution here. Mm-hmm. And I really liked how you kind of pivoted back to this, to something that was a little bit easier, more in your headspace, right? Than maybe the intricacies of Rails. So I was just wondering if you could talk about, your kind of pivot there.
Yeah, well, I think recognizing that there's a built-in way to do this, and then I don't know, the way that kind of made more. I guess I was thinking like, what makes sense to me first, and then here's another option, right? And at least taking 2 steps down that option to see if that makes more sense to me than this thing that kind of did. I think paid off, right? And I think it goes back to what you were talking about in the first half of putting multiple ideas out there, at least getting them out of your head, right? So you can see like what kind of makes sense and what doesn't. And this, like I've used, .h, I can use loops and kind of put stuff into an object that makes sense, or put stuff into a hash that makes sense to me, versus kind of what we were going about before. I'm like, we might be able to work through this, but it might take the whole time just to figure out whatever the specifics of Ruby were, right? To override them.
Yeah, definitely. And then just wanted to wrap our concession. I'd say there is something called as JSON in Ruby, and that's the thing that kind of like does the serialization here. So as JSON include has many through. So we can just maybe quickly show you here. So we did
see the purple links. You've been here before.
Yeah. I've been down this road before. So we were to go all the way back, and I could have just deleted that. It would have been so much faster. You can see all the work we put in. And then if we went to do.rb, and then if we just kind of copied this in here, and then updated albums as it has many, tags, include tags. Let's see. We rendered. Oh, that did finally work. It was just kind of a reload. So we had it right the first time. Looks like we got an error here. Not include that, right? The syntax error. I think I have an extra end. It's not always the best at copying stuff.
Sounds a speed problem, right?
Undefined method tags.
Is that the same issue?
To do tags. Thought that should have worked. Include albums as it has many songs through albums.
Is it the same key issue with tags, or reserved word issue?
Oh, you think? Oh, that could be it. That's interesting.
So it looked like the same error, but I don't.
Hey, I thought. I'm looking at the tags for the view tag. I messed up the model wrong, honestly. Tag. It should have worked. Hold on. There we go.
Oh, singular there.
200 completed. Do tags. It didn't return anything in here. Include tag. That's the sad. Thought that should have worked like that. There's another way to do this that's a little bit easier. Just do
This is the answer to why I didn't go this route.
easier way to do this. It's not this way. That.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if that's gonna work, to be honest.
It's not red. Oh,
It's definitely red. I'm thinking maybe it's that hidden word thing.
interesting.
But the other way would be if we look at as JSON Rails, it will tell us how to include other options a little bit easier, I guess.
And why does it not render them by default? Because of the relationship?
I think it's just based on the relationship there. So it's just kind of essentially like it has this stuff as like the only here. I think that is what might work. If we get only ID title might work. Let's just give us the title. Drive me nuts now.
Or maybe it's a problem for another day.
It might be a problem for another day, but that should have worked here. This might be includes. There it is.
There we go. Nice.
Yeah. Almost.
Cool. Okay. So there's another way. That's interesting. Basically, is that overriding the serialization?
Yeah, so when Rails runs this render JSON here, it calls that as JSON method, right? So in Rails, sort of what you're saying, everything's an object, right? So you can always write it here. So when you call super, it's kind of including everything before. And then what we're really overriding here is just this option hash here. So then just kind of using the right syntax to kind of do the include house many through.
Yeah. Nice. Cool. Thank you. I think this is a good example of how to do a technical interview that's not fully focused on, go whiteboard this thing and more like actually work through a problem, right? Obviously, maybe you're more the lead on this one than I would be, or someone would typically be in the interviewer in the interviewee seat. But anything else to add or anything you want to plug before we wrap up here?
No, I mean, again, I think really big kudos to you, right? We're trying the solution. You can see, even for someone more advanced in Ruby, that solution can become a little bit confusing, right? I think you did a really good job of kind of Googling and kind of learning about like what serialization is, right? So again, like in our application, we use a certain serializer, right? It makes that a little bit easier. In the interview, you could maybe bring in a serializer, right? If you've had a lot of experience in that. Or you can kind of, again, just kind of get something on the board, maybe talk about that way. We kind of realized there was this way. So even though we didn't solve that way, it's like, okay, now I see your process, your way to kind of see things. I kind of understand it's a time pressure, all that. Here's kind of just the quick and dirty way. Let's create our array of objects and do that. And let's move on, right? And kind of, we were able to fully complete the problem in like a easy amount of time, right? So I think that was super impressive.
Yeah, and I think that again ties back to the first step what we talked about of someone's just looking to see what you know in an interview setting, right? A lot of people are probably going to know that initial method, right, to do it. But if you come in and you you just happen to have worked with the serialization a lot in the past, you might go, oh, this is a way to solve it. And you as the interviewer who knows that, oh, this is what we do internally, would kind of checks a different box. Maybe you didn't even know you're looking for, right? But you go, okay, this person has that skill set, right? Which is nice to see. But if someone doesn't have that skill set, that's also perfectly fine, right?
Yeah, so that's what kind of gets back to, again, like trying to get all those solutions out on the board, right? So you see a solution like that, even if it's one that like, maybe bringing in a serializer the first time, right? That's like a whole big, longer solution, right? It's like, okay, you realize that now it's like, all right, we're just going to do the quick and dirty for the interview process. Now you've kind of used both skills. Maybe you talk about the trade-offs of why you would use a serializer as opposed to the solution you ended up doing, right? Or again, you can kind of see like maybe, if we had got into AskJSON and really struggled there, that's like, the syntax there in the AskJSON is not really what we're interviewing for, right? It's just more that we got there, we realized, hey, Rails has this built-in thing. This is what's actually going on when it calls render JSON, really, right? That's what that's kind of testing, just kind of seeing your depth of knowledge, your breadth of knowledge there. And then it's like, again, like finally we pivot back to this other solution, right? That's like really, I think ultimately what software engineering is, right? It's like the goal of an engineer is to think about all the possible solutions, think about the trade-offs, do that in a team setting, right? Do that with somebody else you're throwing ideas off of, and ultimately come to the best solution. But in an interview, right, there's a time pressure, there's all these things, right? Maybe we don't always do the most ideal one in an interview because we're just kind of trying to get to the next step, right? It's like you passed this first step, now like the interview's testing other things. Let's focus on that part now.
Yeah, cool, great. Well, plug 5 to 9. Tell the people where they can find you. Anything else to share before we wrap up?
No, yeah, I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. Always feel free to reach out, connect with me, send me a message. And then, yeah, if you're interested in 5 to 9, check out 5to9.co. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me about that as well. But yeah, really enjoyed this, Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a blast. And hiring for senior engineer and a product owner, product designer?
Yeah, essentially someone to own our product process. We're kind of a technical product manager. We have a lot of kind of integrations. We're going to go deeper down that path. We're also about to like kick off a fundraising. So, even if you're seeing this kind of towards the end of the year or early next year, I'm sure we'll still be hiring for people then.
Cool. Great. Well, thanks so much, Dan.
All right. Sounds good. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching the technical interview portion of the Professional Technical Interviewee. If you want to tackle this interview question, you can find it at github.com/professional technical interviewee. New episodes are released on the first 4 Thursdays of each month. Find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Taylor Dorsett or on Apple Podcast or Spotify. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on new episodes. And remember, keep practicing.